All right, so on Friday we had a big dip in the market. We were down about 3% on the S&P. I think the Nasdaq was about the same. The Dow not quite as much. Um, and the question is, we go back to, where's the market going to go? Should you buy the dip? What's going to happen going forward? And again, nobody knows what's going to happen going forward. But the one thing that I think needs to be pointed out is that pessimism amongst investors, if it's not at an all-time high, or at least a recent all-time high, because I imagine in the Great Depression it was probably worse, but in the last 10, 20 years, I don't see how it can be much worse than it is right now. But to be fair, there definitely is some areas that are still overvalued. There's some areas that I think are undervalued. And the question is, should you be buying right now? And again, like that, it entirely comes down to opinion on that one. But um, in my opinion, you just dollar cost average no matter what. Like in my opinion, right? If you're in it for the long run, you don't care about short-term price swings, right? I mean, if you look at what's going to happen, I think it's pretty much a consensus to be quite honest. But what most people, at least most of the quote-unquote experts, and I mean the actual experts, not the Kramers and these kind of people, um, what they're saying, and I think it's pretty easy to figure out too, is that the market's going to continue to be volatile until the Fed stops raising rates. And how high are they going to get rates? If you look at the long-term trend, they every time they get into rate hiking cycles, they always end up not getting as high as the last time. The last time, what did they get up to? Like 2.5%, 3%. So um, I don't think they get much above 2%. I mean, so we're looking at probably another couple months, maybe 3 months of rate hiking. I think it depends how often they meet, but I would say by the end of the year they stop, and if not, eventually they're going to go back to QE and money printing, and money printer go burr, and like they're going to go back, like they have to. The whole system is too fragile for them to keep doing what they're doing. So that's the one thing I think people need to figure out, because again, like the goal right now is to get inflation under control, right? And the problem with that is I don't think they can feasibly raise rates high enough to actually get inflation under control. The only way they would do that is to collapse the stock market, right? So um, eventually it's going to get to the point where it's like, hey, we can only do so much. And eventually, like inflation has to subside at some point, but I think the days of 2% inflation are probably gone. By subside, it means it's probably going to be 3, 4, 5%. Um, but again, the big question is it going to go lower? If I had to bet money, I think it does go lower. I mean, the lowest we've got this year is about 3,800, I believe. Um, I think we probably do dip a little lower. I think the summer I think is going to be really volatile. Personally, I think it probably gets up to maybe 42, 4,300 on the S&P. I think it could go down as, another 37, 36, maybe even 35 to be quite honest. Crypto's the other big one too. Crypto's been down quite a bit this last few days as well. I mean, we're down to I think like 27,000 US, which is as low as it's been in at least 2 years. So I think that I mean, I think Bitcoin specifically is a better buy right now than the stock market, simply because over the long run, right? Assuming your goal is the long run. If your goal is short-term trading, that's a completely different story. But my philosophy is, the long term. I'm talking at least a year or two, upwards of 10 or 20 years. What is going to, be the best? And what's going to be the best is crypto, specifically Bitcoin. Commodities are going to do really well, um, and businesses that are very fundamental, right? Because I think going at least for the foreseeable year or two, I think things are going to be kind of choppy until the Fed goes back into QE infinity and money printing and taking rates to zero or even negative. The companies that are going to do the best are the ones that are the most profitable and the ones that produce the most tangible stuff, right? These tech stocks that are losing money, they're not going to do well. Companies that are cyclical probably don't do well either. The companies that are going to make money are the ones that have the most demand right now. The companies that are producing the best cash flow right now are going to be the ones that are going to do the best, and that's why the energy companies have done very well recently. I think the you know the mineral producers like the copper ones and stuff like that are going to do well. Um, the ones that produce a lot of stuff are going to do well. And why is that? Is because again, like when those things still need to be used, and again, going forward too, if we're going to have this transition towards wind and solar or renewables in general, you need this kind of stuff, right? There's no way around it. So and even if you don't, they're still going to do well. So again, in my opinion, I think the best bargain right now is probably Bitcoin. And I know whether and for the simple reason being that if you look at reasons to sell, right? What are the reasons the realistic reasons to sell any investment, right? It's simply when something fundamental about it changes. And if you look back at when Bitcoin was 80,000 Canadian or what 85, I think it got up to. Um, has anything fundamental changed about it since then? Like, no, nothing fundamental has changed. The only thing that has changed is the Fed policy, right? That's the only thing that has changed. But anybody who follows that stuff knows that eventually they're going to have to reverse course, right? And not only that, there's the fact that Bitcoin adoption continues to go up. The hash rate is at an all-time high. I mean, anyone who is a supporter, and there's not one person I'm aware of that's like, yeah, I'm selling out, right? No one has said that. So there is no reason to be any more bearish on Bitcoin now than at any point in the last year or two. And inflation is going to continue to stay high, which is gonna help it. It's inevitable that an ETF, a spot ETF, gets approved in the States. There's already spot ETFs in a lot of these countries. Eventually, it's going to become easier and easier to get into it. Um, Technology will improve, which is going to get more institutional investors into it. Retirement funds, and again, like I don't expect any of these institutional investors to be putting crazy amounts in, but even if they're putting 1 or 2%, that's still massive amounts of money, like massive amounts of money. You're going to have more countries that will adopt it, et cetera, et cetera. So is the volatility over? By no means. Until the Fed stops raising rates, the volatility will continue, and I don't think there's going to be any clear trend up or down in the market as a whole until the Fed stops raising rates. And when does that happen? Well, it's looking like that'll happen later on this year, simply because I think the goal, even though that the Fed claims to be and still pretends to be apolitical. Typically, the goal is that they're apolitical, but the reality is that they are political. So what they want to do is they want to try and get inflation under control before the midterms, right? Because they want to get the Democrats reelected because the Democrats are the majority right now. Um, so again, after that, well, the Republicans probably take the House and the Senate, meaning the Republicans have more power all of a sudden, which means different things will happen, right? So but again, that obviously all of this stuff is just my opinion. But my opinion is simply, where's the market going to go? I think it's going to be choppy over the summer and into the fall. But eventually, the Fed will stop raising rates. They will go back to QE. They will go back to money printing. And when that happens, you will see a massive pump in the stock market again, and an even bigger pump in crypto, specifically Bitcoin. So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.